Welcome to 2.1 Watch Me, starting the Rosas Palace franchise sales. This is the beginning of the case, so make sure by this point you have read the case, Rosas Palace franchise, and you should also have listed all of the expenses, revenues, assumptions, and all of the important figures that are shared on the case, so you just need to follow these videos and input the amounts. Now, before we start, I want to share with you what is it that we're going to create so you have an idea, a mental image of what's the end result. Once we're done, this is what we're going to have. Notice how I have here a couple of sections. This is something called the basic program data. Then I have the P&L, the profit and loss or income statement. So I have my revenue, gross margin, my expenses, before tax profit, taxes, and after tax profit. And then I have my cash statement or my cash budget. These are the inflows and these are the outflows. And now, don't worry much if you don't really understand what's going on with the cash statement or with the P&L. These are things you're going to learn later on in your finance and accounting courses. For now, try to focus on the functionality of Excel. That's really what we're trying to develop at this point. Now look at the right. I have totals. This is a nice way of summarizing my data so I can easily see for each of the 3 years that I'm required to solve this, what are the totals for each account. Now, the most important part is that this template is dynamic. Notice how at the moment on the revenues it says 133.3 thousand of US dollars of sales. And that's because we're based on Waller. Remember that the case talks about Waller and Ansari's assumption? If I change here for an A, notice how my sales go down. Now I have 106.7 because Ansari thinks that the sales are going to be lower according to her. So this is something that is dynamic and it's quite helpful because now I can easily switch from the assumptions from Waller or the assumptions from Ansari by just changing the letter here. And now my entire template changes. So this is the end result. This is what we're gonna get once we're done. But let's start from scratch. I'm gonna close this and let's open now a new file. And you have to bear with me. This is a bit of a long step. It's a little bit over 15 minutes, this video. But it's because it requires some setup. But once we're done, we do everything together and the other videos are not as long. So just stay with me for this time so you understand what's going on. On a blank worksheet then, let's go to cell B20 and let's type revenues. This is where my first amount is gonna be. And I'm gonna generate a sequence of numbers. These are the months. I'm gonna start typing 1 through 2. Then I'm gonna select these two. And then notice once they're selected, there's a small square there. I'm gonna click on it. And then I'm gonna drag the formulas. And what Excel is doing is detecting that I want to do is a series of numbers, a sequence of numbers. And it generates them for me, so I don't have to type them manually. All I did was type 1 and 2 and drag the formula, and automatically Excel increases by 1 each number, and it gives me a sequence of numbers. These are going to be my months, so we have from 1 to 36, because we need to cover 3 years as requested for the problem. So that's 12 months on each year, 36 months in total. Now let's create our assumptions area. So let's go to B7 and let's type assumptions. Then I'm gonna have first year revenues and annual increases because according to the program the sales increase every year. And then I have Waller and Ansari because the amounts are different depending on who you ask. Now let's give some formatting here. So let's start off over assumptions. I'm gonna click here this B and that's bold. I'm making bold this. And I'm gonna do the same for Waller and Ansari, but rather than clicking here, I'm gonna, with my keyboard, I'm doing now Control V. And that generates the same result. So 2 ways to create bold. Now I'm gonna give some indentation just to make my file a little bit easier to read. So I'm gonna go here on the alignment area, and I'm going to click on increase indent. And now this has been moved to the right. That indicates that the first year revenues are part of assumptions. It's just something, a visual aid. I'm going to give indentation also to this one, but I'm going to do it differently now. On my keyboard, I'm typing Ctrl+1, and look that this opens something called the format cells. And on the second tab, the tab called alignment, you now need to click 1 here, and that gives you one indent to the right. Alright, the final formatting that I'm going to do is I'm going to click these two together, and I'm going to click here on center, and that centers these two. So also it's just a visual aid to read it easier. Now notice how I cannot read these two. So let's make them fit so that I can read what's going on under column B. And that you can do by placing the cursor, the mouse, between columns B and C, and notice how it changes. Look here how it's a downwards arrow. When I stop over here, it changes. Now it's like a vertical line with two arrows. Once you have that, double click. I did double click, and this is what you get. Automatically it gets fixed, the width of the column gets fixed so that everything gets readable. Now let's input our first amount. So according to the problem, the first year revenues, if you ask Waller, are 1.6 million US dollars. So that's what I'm going to write here. And according to him, the annual increases in sales are 150,000 US dollars. I need one more zero. There you go. Now, according to Ansari, when she did the research with the franchisees, these assumptions are a little bit high. She thinks that, or according to the other guys, the sales are 20% lower than what Waller projects. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type here equal. That means that I'm going to input a formula, and then I'm going to click on C8 times, and the character times is given by a star here in Excel, 0.8. Why 0.8? Because the sales are down by 20% according to the franchisees. So that means that only 80% of the sales that are projected by Waller really get through. So this is the result. Now notice that this is quite helpful because I'm not inputting the number itself, the value, but what I'm plugging is a formula. So if later on we decide to revise these assumptions and to increase the amount of sales predicted by Waller, let's say by 1.9 million, I only need to change one cell, and automatically the sales, according to the franchisees and Sari's assumptions, get updated because it's not a value, it's a formula. So that's why working with formulas in Excel is so helpful, because then you can easily change your assumptions. Now I'm going to bring this back, and what I did there to bring it back was I click Ctrl Z. Okay, I'm going to drag this formula down because we need to produce the same effect on the annual increases. So I'm going to once again click here. Notice how the cursor changes. I drag my formula, and I'm not copy pasting. Dragging a formula is the same that copy pasting. Now notice how I'm not copy pasting the value, but the formula itself. So now it says C9 times 0.8, and C9 are the annual increases. So now I have these two correct. Now let's work some formatting here, because these amounts are a little bit hard to read, to understand. So I'm going to select them all together, and then I'm going here, and notice how there's a comma. This is a comma style. So now how my template has nice commas, a nice formatting, and then I'm going to decrease the number of decimals, and that I do here in this button over here. So now it's much easier to read. Alright, let's calculate now our first monthly figure. So how do I do that? I'm going to type a formula. I'm not going to do this with values. I'm going to keep using formulas as much as I can. I'm going to type equal. Then I'm going to click on the first year revenues for Waller, the 1.6 million, divided by 12. Why 12? Because the problem says that the sales are evenly distributed among the months. So for the first month, I'm going to make 133,000 US dollars. Now, notice that that's a little bit hard to read. So let's transform the sales into thousands of dollars. And we're going to work the entire template in thousands of dollars. So just to improve the readability of the template. So I'm going to go back here, click on the formula bar, and I'm going to add divided by 1,000. This is the result, 133. This means 133,000 of US dollars in sales. Now, for the second month, what I have to do is I have to repeat the sales. So I'm going to do the second month is equal to the sales from the first month. And then I'm going to drag this formula all the way through the column N. And that is the 12th month. So now I have my sales repeat every year. Every month. And let's calculate now the total for the first year. So I'm going to go all the way down and I'm going to write total year 1, and then I'm going to input a formula. This is equal, and there's a formula called sum, and that gives you the summation of a series of sales. And I'm going to select the first 12 months because that's what makes the first year. Click enter and notice that the total is 1.6. Now in general you should always perform some checks when calculating totals. The first check is the business check. Does this make sense? And yes, it does. 1.6 million US dollars of sales is what Waller is telling us that those are the amounts of sales for the first year. So we have to make sure that business-wise it makes sense. And also we have to make sure that this amount, the formula here, is pointing to the right cells. So how do we do that? These are the cells that I'm aiming to summarize. So I'm going to select them all together, and notice how at the very bottom of Excel there are some summarizing figures. So Excel always gives you the average, 133, always gives you the count, 12, because we have 12 months, and it always calculates for you the total, the summation. So this is a nice way to check if your formula makes sense. You should always do that. Now, let's calculate the sales for the second year. So for the second year, I'm going to month 13, that's when the second year starts, and I'm going to write equal, that's a formula, parentheses, the first year revenues, plus 1 increase, because the second year I'm going to sell a little bit more, 150,000 more. Divided by 12, the sales are distributed even, divided by 1,000. These are the amounts of sales for the second year, every month. And I'm going to do exactly the same what I did before. Just copy the sales for all of the months, and I'm doing that with a formula. I'm not inputting a value there, all the way through month 24. Then let's estimate the sales for the third year, and that I'm going to do with another formula. So I'm going to type parentheses, the first year revenues plus 1 annual increase plus another annual increase divided by 12 divided by 1,000. This is the amount of sales for the second year. Now I'm going to copy that into the rest of my months for the third year. There you go. And now let's find some totals here. So total for year 2. And now check that I'm going to use a different way of generating the same formula. Before I use the keyword to input the sum formula. Now I'm going here, I'm going to click on f of x, and I'm going to write sum, because that's what I'm trying to do. I'm finding a sum. I click go, and then Excel gives me all of the functions that are associated to a sum, to an operation of sum. So let's see the first one. That seems to be the one that we want. Adds all the numbers in a range of cells. That's what I need. That's exactly what I need. So I'm going to click OK. Excel creates this text box for me, this pop-up window for me that helps me to generate the formula. I'm going to click here, and I'm going to select, this is the second year, so I need to select from month 13 till month 24. Those are the months for the second year. I click here. That's it. There's no other number I need to add at this point. Click OK. So notice how it's the same result. I'm standing here now, and this is the formula for the first year. This is the formula for the second year. The difference by now is if you use the f of x help is you don't need to worry about the parentheses or the syntaxes. Excel generates it for you automatically. Let's do now the total for the year 3. This one I'm typing this time. So I'm typing the formula and the ranges for cells 25 through 36. And this is the total. And once I went, make sure this makes sense business-wise. So we have 1.9 for the third year. Does that make sense? It seems, because look, 150 plus 150, because it's 2 years after, so that's 2 annual increases. That's 300,000 plus 1.6. That's 1.9 million US dollars. So it seems this seems to be okay. Now let's adapt our template, because at the moment our sales are referencing. Look, if I click here, Excel helps me with a visual aid. Where are the formula referencing to? At the moment my template is referencing to Waller's assumption. But remember in the one that I showed you at the beginning of this video, once we're done, if you type A, we're gonna get Ansari's assumption, and if you type W, we're gonna get Waller's assumption. So let's create that. Let's make that happen here. I'm gonna go to the cell B5, and I'm gonna write based on, and then here on C5, I'm gonna start with Waller. So I'm gonna write a W there. This is a cell that, according to what you write, the template is gonna dynamically change. So let's do that. Let's adapt our formula so that will be the result. I'm gonna click here on I'm gonna clear this formula for now. Just keep in mind what we have before. We have CA divided by 12 divided by 1000. That's the original formula that we have. I'm gonna delete that, and I'm gonna click f of x, and then I'm gonna write if. I'm gonna click here if to see all of the functions that are related to if, and the first one seems to be the one that I need. I'm gonna click OK. Notice how the if formula has 3 text boxes here. One thing that is called a logical test. Then if the logical test is met, a value, and when the logical test is not met, then you can choose another value. Let's see how this works in practice. What is it what I'm trying to achieve here? I'm trying to achieve that when this cell is equal to W, and I'm writing that W with quotation marks. So this says the logical test, the condition, what the formula if is going to check for is cell C5 is equal to W. Then when that happens, what do I need Excel to do? I need Excel to go to Waller's first year revenue, divide that by 12, and divide that by 1000. This is the original formula that I had, remember? And look at the result. The result is 133, which is okay. That's exactly the number that I have on the first year. Now, what happens if C5 doesn't have a W written? If that's the case, then we're talking about Ansari's assumption. And when we have Ansari's assumptions, what we need to do is, rather than taking these sales, I need to take these sales. So I'm going to click here, divided by 12, divided by 12, divided by 1000. And I'm going to expand once again. So this is the result. And remember at the beginning I showed you 106.7. There you go. So when we don't have a W here, that's Ansari's, and that's the result I'm going to get. I'm going to click OK. This is the result. Look at this formula. That it looks a little bit scary, but don't worry much, because you always can use the f of x, break down the formula in the 3 components of the if, and then it's very, very manageable. As you get more experience, all you have to know is that you can recreate the formula by typing it, and all you have to do is to add some commas here to separate each of these 3 components, and then add a parenthesis at the beginning and at the end. But don't worry about the syntaxes at this point. Try to do it with the function of x. That's very easy. Now, look how my template looks the same. And that's okay, because at the moment it's written W under C5, so it shouldn't change. Now let's click here and let's write A, look how it changed. All of the months, the first year months have changed. And now look at the total. The total is also different, 1.28, and that matches this 1.28. So my formula seems to be working. Now let me bring it back to W. Notice something. So it's back to W. So again I have 133, and that is $1.6 million in sales. Now notice something. The way we input the formula, if we don't write a W, let's say I write an L, then automatically my sales are going down and they're matching the assumptions from Ansari. Although typing an L there doesn't really make sense because there is nothing related to L in my assumptions area. It's either Waller or Ansari. But the reason why this is happening is because the way I build the formula, I'm saying if C5 is equal to W, then bring Waller's assumptions. And if not, when C5 is not W, then always bring Ansari's assumption. So really what I'm saying is, if here is a W, then bring Waller. Anything else that is written under cell C5, you will always bring Ansari. Look, even if I write the word Waller, then it's bringing Ansari. So be careful with that. Excel is not smart. You have to make it work for you. So be careful with that. At the moment, it's just W what really brings the assumptions for Waller. Even if the cell is empty, still is bringing the numbers from Ansari. This is because the formula is written in that way. For now, this is enough. There's no third assumption. There's no other assumptions there. So this is all I need. It's either Waller or Ansari. Now, let's fix the formulas for the other three. So remember, I have tried to check the formula first. I have C8 plus C9 divided by 12 divided by 1000. This is the formula that I need. I'm going to replace that for an if. So I click f of x, I select if. Okay. My logical test is the same. If this is equal W, if C5 is equal W, then you need to bring the sales for Waller with one annual increase because we're on the second year, divided by 12 divided by 1000. And when you're not Waller, then you need to bring these sales, the ones for Ansari, plus one annual increase because it's the second year, divided by 12 divided by 1000. And this is the result. And then let's do the same for the third year. So notice here I have C8 plus C9 plus C9. So I'm going to delete that. F of x, the if formula, same condition than before. Everything depends on what's written on C5. If C5 is equal W with quotations, then parentheses, bring the first year revenues plus one annual increase plus a second annual increase because it's the third year, divided by 12 divided by 1000. And if C5 is not equal W, then we need to bring the figures from Ansari. I'm going to bring two annual increases because it's the third year, divided by 12 divided by 1000. That's it. So at the moment when we have W no changes, 1.6, 1.75, 1.9, and if I write here an A, then the figures go down to 1.28, 1.4, and 1.52. Alright, so we're almost there. Let's do some formatting here because look how at the moment I have some random formatting here. So I'm going to select all together, all of my figures here, and I'm going to click the comma style with one decimal. I don't need more. One decimal is enough. And that's it. Let's save this template, and I'm going to name this Rosas Palace Franchise WIP Work in Progress. And that's it. You just completed step 2.1 for Rosa Ansari. See you.